I hate RuneScape. No, not this one. This is old school RuneScape. I hate this one. The real RuneScape, technically. I think the graphics are ugly. I think the combat is clunky. I think the microtransactions are a complete disaster. And all around, I just don't think it's a very good game. And it's a game I have spent more than a decade now actively resenting. I haven't even logged into this version of the game since 2012. At that point in my life, I had dedicated thousands of hours and 7 years of my childhood, but a lot can change in 13 years. And as the official president of MMORPGs, is it fair for me to harbor this much resentment for a game that, honestly, I just don't know that much about? I decided to revisit one of the most important games in my life, and to be honest, it was pretty painful. Kind of like the pain I feel when Google Chrome is just eating up all my RAM because I have one tab open. It's one tab. Can we relax?
This video is sponsored by Opera GX, a browser I know you've heard of, but for some reason, you haven't installed yet. And that has to change because I was like you once, using Google Chrome, watching my RAM get taken away on my boring gray browser. I'm being 100% genuine when I say Opera GX is my favorite browser out there. There's GX mods, which let you totally customize your Opera GX experience from visuals to even sounds and background music. I literally used the background music from the Medieval mod while writing the script for this video. You have the video pop out and ad block built-in features, which I love especially when I'm playing on my laptop and don't have a second monitor to watch my favorite YouTuber while I grind out whatever MMO I'm playing at the time. And the best part, switching to Opera GX took me like 5 seconds because I was able to import all of my bookmarks, passwords, settings, and everything from my old browser. Seriously, I used Opera GX before they even sponsored me, so I can't think of a good reason not to use them. If you want to join me on a better browser, then make sure to click the link at the top of the description and download Opera GX right now, please. And thank you to Opera GX again for sponsoring this video.
If you're not familiar with RuneScape, you might be a little confused as to why me and a lot of other people like me have so much hatred for this game. And if you really know nothing about RuneScape, you might be confused why there's 2 of them. And why is this one called RuneScape 3? Where's RuneScape 2 and 1? So let me give you a brief history lesson that should hopefully clear everything up. In 2001, Andrew Gower and his 2 brothers formed Jagex and released RuneScape, which at the time looked like this. Ugly. Despite its graphical shortcomings, it did manage to get a good amount of people hooked, so they kept improving it. A few years later, in 2004, Jagex released a major update to the game, featuring brand new 3D graphics, improved combat, and tons of other changes along with it. It was such a massive change that they decided to name the game RuneScape 2. Despite the fact that it's RuneScape 2, you could transfer your characters from RuneScape 1 to RuneScape 2 and keep all of your progress. So in essence, it was really the same game. But 2013 is when all of this confusion really starts. RuneScape was going through a series of total overhauls, both graphical and systematic, not dissimilar to what happened with RuneScape 2 back in 2004. Everything culminated in the release of the Evolution of Combat, a massively unpopular combat overhaul that changed the simplistic combat style of point, click, and wait into more of a World of Warcraft style hotbar system. I have a whole video about the Evolution of Combat, you can click on it right here, and if you don't do it, I am going to scream for the rest of this video. In response to all of this backlash, among many other unpopular updates, Jagex eventually released Old School RuneScape. Old School RuneScape is RuneScape as it was in 2007, but eventually it would receive its own updates and an increasingly large development team that made it one of the most popular MMORPGs of this decade. All the while, RuneScape 3 was continuing to get more microtransactions, more controversial and unpopular updates, and it became its own beast entirely, something that most RuneScape players from back in the day wouldn't even recognize as RuneScape.
Iconic areas we once loved to explore were rearranged, remodeled, or even removed to make way for massive world-shattering quests. The bosses we used to fear with every fiber of our being were redesigned to look like that naked mole rat from Kim Possible if it got the Captain America super serum. And with each passing year, new ways to buy or minimize accomplishments came out. Microtransactions in all different shapes and sizes infiltrated the game, letting you buy progression in every form imaginable. Buyable cosmetics that were at best silly and a little stupid looking, but at worst ruined one of the most important parts of RuneScape. Visual progression. The ability to walk by someone, look at their gear, and instantly know what they achieved to obtain that item, motivating you to one day be able to reach the same heights. Instead, now, everyone walks around with flaming wings or a shiny cape with stupid particle effects. I mean, come on, guys. You can't actually think the particle effects look that good. And so many people who played back in those days, like me, resent the game. The simplicity, the charm, the joy and accomplishment felt with every experience gained, every boss killed, every skill cape earned. All of that was gone. The only thing that remained was the name. To us, this game isn't RuneScape. It abandoned what made it RuneScape a long time ago. But regardless, for the first time in 13 years, I logged back in. To give myself a truly fresh experience, I decided to make an Iron Man. Iron Men, unlike regular accounts, don't have access to most of the microtransactions in the game, with one notable exception that I really don't like, but we'll get to that later. Right from the start, everything felt so familiar.
I was told to fish some food, light a fire, cook the food, mine and smith ore. It was all so familiar. Oh, well, I just followed these little breadcrumbs that told me exactly where to walk in case I'm too stupid to follow the directions. I know what south is, guys. My initial impressions of RuneScape 3 were very similar to my initial impressions of Canada. Everything is really similar, but it's just a little different. And it scares me, kind of. But that familiarity quickly melted away the second I had to start using combat, which was pretty much as rough as I remember it being. Unlike old school RuneScape's very, very simple combat system, at least on the surface, RuneScape 3's ability hotbar system is much more complex. It is actually way too complex. Okay, so basically you have these abilities, and these abilities generate something called adrenaline, and you use adrenaline to use other abilities called threshold abilities that will use a certain amount of adrenaline. But wait, because there's also more abilities called ultimate abilities that will use 100% adrenaline, but they will do a ton of damage. All right, simple enough, I understand this. Okay, so what do you start off with? Like one ability? Maybe two abilities if we're getting a little crazy? No, you start off with 5 abilities. Just kidding, you start off with 6 abilities because you have 5 that are tied to the attack skill, and then you have another one that's tied to the strength skill. Well, okay, with 6 abilities isn't that much. Psych, there's actually 22 starter abilities when you factor in the ones you start with for ranged and the ones you start with for mage. 22 abilities that you will get the second you log into this game. That is bonkers. Expecting someone to understand 22 abilities, what they do, and how to use them right when they're starting off your game is insane. It's not normal. Luckily, RuneScape 3 seems to understand that that isn't normal. So they actually start you off in a combat mode called Revolution. Revolution will use your abilities for you based on where you've placed them on your hotbar. This allows you to focus on using your threshold and ultimate abilities, but if you want, Revolution of Combat can even use those for you. So you don't even have to think at all if you don't want to. Is Revolution the most elegantly designed system I've ever seen? No, not at all. It actually seems like an admission of, oops, we made this too complicated. But boy, am I glad it exists, because having to mash 1,000 buttons to kill a chicken doesn't sound fun to me. But if you want to change your combat mode or rearrange your hotbars or do anything in this game, you're going to have to navigate what I think might be the worst interface system in any MMORPG ever made. And I'm the guy who played 100 hours of the first MMO ever made. There are tons of menus hidden inside of other menus. Everything is movable, but nothing seems to be where you expect it to be. You have to click on everything, just hoping by random chance you happen to find the thing you're looking for. And then, my God, you better remember where that was or put it somewhere you'll remember, because it's gonna take a long time to find it again if you don't. The whole thing is not just messy and honestly a little ugly to look at, it is terrifying and overwhelming. And if you want to change it, you have to go into the settings menu where there are thousands and thousands of options, and not all of them are really well explained, so you don't know what to do or what to toggle. I don't think I'm being dramatic here. I've heard multiple RuneScape 3 veterans criticize the interface as one of the hardest things to overcome for new players. And a lot of them will tell you the best thing you can do is watch a 38-minute video from the RS guy about how to set up your interface. I ended up copying this interface basically exactly until I got more comfortable with the game and made my own tweaks to it. This is what everyone should use. And it's a 38-minute video about an interface. I mean, come on, guys. This is so bad.
And the clutter and confusion of these interfaces spills out into the world design too. Everywhere you walk, there is something happening. An NPC waiting to give you a quest, a giant tower next to a port town with a giant bird god perched on top of it, a giant crater smothered between two starting areas. Don't get me wrong, it's good to have places to explore, landmarks to see, quests to receive, but the sheer amount of things crammed together and the juxtaposition in tone and style of one thing to the next makes this massive world feel cramped and overwhelming. Having to wrap my head around the combat and the crazy interfaces and the insane world made just getting started feel like a grind, one I didn't really want to continue with. I was yearning for the comfort of my familiar 2007 style interface on old school RuneScape, where I could just do my little farm runs or fletch my little bows. This is gameplay, baby! But I had to keep going. Beyond the guardrails of the tutorial, I tried resorting back to what I knew, doing quests that I remembered from my childhood and seeing the ways they had been changed to be substantially easier. Almost every single one of these changes, though, felt bad to me. Gone were the simple, charming old quests that told so much of their story through clunky, text-based descriptions of what was happening. Now we had cutscenes, boss fights, even literal gods talking to us. And for some reason, half of these quests have voice acting and half don't, and it's kind of like random which ones do and which ones don't. And I hate to be that guy, but like the voice actors aren't even good.
It's the girlie that had the wolf. We got some more druid meat for the big fight, lads.
Yes, feel the true power of the druids.
I'm sorry, but were we really okay with having this be a part of our major historical MMO?
Yes.
Okay, to be fair, I think the issue in this quest and a lot of the other quests might be the writing, but still, it just doesn't feel like it fits. But it goes beyond the quests. Training my skills, the thing that RuneScape is all about, no longer felt like a challenge. Whereas in old school RuneScape, mining ore from a rock depletes that rock for some time, in RuneScape 3, you can just sit there, mining the same rock for as long as it takes for your inventory to fill up. The only thing you can do to make it faster is click every so often so your energy restores. In old school, you would have to go out to an agility course and run laps to train your agility, but in RuneScape 3, every player you see is just whipping out a training dummy and leveling up their stats at the bank. Even for an Iron Man, things just felt too easy. In old school RuneScape's Iron Man mode, money is counterintuitively extremely important, considering it's a mode that cannot trade with anyone else. And early on, money is really hard to come by. It's one of the first challenges you have to solve when playing the game mode. The satisfaction you feel when you've solved your problem or reached your goal after spending time on it is what makes the gameplay loop rewarding. It's the friction that makes the game fun. But RuneScape 3 is frictionless.
I was getting ready to solve my money problems on RuneScape 3 when I decided, hey, you know what? Why don't I look up some guides or money-making strategies? That's a thing that people do. I was hoping to be pointed towards a quest that would reward me with some money or some monsters I could kill for some quick cash, but instead, I found something truly horrifying. You see, every time you complete a quest in RuneScape, you get these things called quest points. Usually you'll get 1 or 2, but sometimes you can get as many as 5 or even 6. And Jagex decide to make those quest points worth something. They decided to make them worth a lot, actually. Just south of a major city is an NPC called May. And if you talk to her every time you get 25 quest points, she'll give you 250,000 coins plus a rare item. That's bonkers. That basically means on an early Iron Man, money is not a problem at all because you have to do these quests anyway for their rewards. They already have rewards, but May is like, well, let me give you all the starter money you're gonna need for the first 30 hours of your account so you don't have to solve anything yourself. Don't worry, I've got you covered. Here's 250,000 coins. Maybe I'm overreacting. I'm probably overreacting. But my issue is that around every single corner, every challenge I expected to face and have to think a little bit to solve or do a bit of grinding to overcome, it was just easy. It was solved for me. I know that it might sound like friction in a game is a bad thing, but if there's no friction, you're just gonna end up sleepwalking through it, not engaged in any way. Without friction, without challenges to overcome, without things to plan out, there's no reason behind the grinds. There's no meaning behind every skill level you get, except for number go up, which wasn't going to do it for me. This is a side rant, but everything became so easy in this game that reaching the maximum skill level of 99 was such a joke that they even made the cape you get for reaching that level way uglier. I mean, this is the old school cape, this is the new cape. What? Why did you do it? That's so ugly. The entire thing just felt wrong. The game was designed wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that this just wasn't my RuneScape. Now that's because it isn't. But if I wanted to give this game a second chance, a real second chance, I had to stop trying to force it to be something it isn't and try to accept it for what it is.
While doing some more quests that I was honestly painfully familiar with because I've been doing them since I was a kid, I came across this portal that kind of clashed against the rest of the environment, to be honest. Normally, I'd ignore it and move on because there are a lot of random portals in RuneScape 3, most of which lead to random, overwhelming minigames, but I knew that if I wanted to actually experience what RuneScape 3 was, I was going to have to start clicking on more things. Entering the portal triggered a cutscene that led me to the Underworld, where after a brief introduction to a crazy cast of characters like Ted, I was able to start learning the Necromancy skill, a new combat skill introduced very recently to the game. I spent a few minutes to grasp the basics, performing rituals to get materials for summoning skeletons, creating and upgrading my gear, and understanding the mechanics of the combat itself. And for the first time since I started playing this game again, I entered a flow state. You know that feeling of playing an MMORPG, or any game really, where you just forget about everything else except the game, where you're not conscious of how many minutes or hours you've been playing, you just keep going? That's what Necromancy did for me. This brand new skill felt like going back to the game's roots that I remembered from 2007 with a completely modern spin on things. You have to make your own armor, Iron Man or not. You have to gather materials and craft them yourself. You have to make meaningful progression, both in the old-fashioned way through the skill, but also through a talent tree that you can only gain points in through combat. It all feels so simple, but it also feels like it fits this modern version of RuneScape. Probably my favorite part of this combat skill, though, is how few abilities there are to learn and how slowly you're able to unlock them. Unlike the existing combat skills that have dozens and dozens of abilities in the first few levels, Necromancy has a drip feed of only 23 abilities in total, some of which are upgrades to previous abilities and others you unlock via the talent tree system. It's such a small amount, but it makes them all the more exciting to unlock and helped me set goals I was really excited to hit so I could unlock a cool new ability. It's the perfect example of quality over quantity. And I mean, some of these abilities are just straight up badass.
At level 99, the maximum level in this skill, you get to complete the ultimate Necromancer power fantasy with a spell that is literally called Summon Undead Army? Are you kidding me? Hell yeah! This skill, one of the newest additions to RuneScape 3, had me completely and utterly hooked. It was addicting the way RuneScape used to be for me, but it was completely and utterly RuneScape 3. After probably too many hours of necromancy training, I decided to branch out to see what other new things have been added to the game, because maybe the new things aren't so bad. So I took the logical next step and went to RuneScape's second newest skill, Archaeology. I discovered a piece of content that was absolutely incredible. With the archaeology skill, you uncover materials and artifacts that you can restore and put in a museum and delve deeper into these dig sites, uncovering mysteries and actually having to think if you want to. You can also just look up a guide, which is okay. I think that's a good gameplay loop for RuneScape. If you're into the lore, there's incredible lore tie-ins in every single one of these dig sites, but if you don't, it's still a really satisfying thing to just grind. Within just this one skill, there are tons of engaging progression systems. Like, yeah, your skill level will go up, but there's more to it than that. When you complete several of the archaeology achievements, like hitting level 40 or uncovering 25 artifacts, you can get promoted in the archaeology guild to an assistant, which will grant you your own research team that you can send out on missions to gather materials and gain XP for you. And when you uncover particularly rare artifacts, you can go to this monolith and sacrifice the artifact to it for powers that extend beyond the archaeology skill, like getting a boost to your life points or being able to do more damage in combat. Some really cool stuff that ties the rest of the skill into the world. But ultimately, training archaeology is just a really satisfying thing to do, like necromancy is. And all of a sudden, I was completely hooked on this game, not just one skill, the entire thing. For the first time in 13 years, I was just enjoying RuneScape 3. I wasn't thinking about old school RuneScape, or I wasn't thinking about how the changes compared to my childhood. I was just playing the game, and it was a lot of fun.
I started to appreciate the game's approach to skilling, where in almost every skill you have the option to be active and gain much more experience and resources per hour, but we're also offered the choice to let the game do its thing passively in the background in exchange for much lower experience rates. The quests that at first I found to be over the top with cringy humor and over dramatic unnecessary cutscenes with subpar voice acting, I now thought were over the top with cringy humor and overdramatic unnecessary cutscenes with subpar voice acting that I really enjoyed doing. I was looking up guides, setting goals, both short-term and long-term. I was completing every quest I could and crafting every upgrade I read about. I was on the verge of becoming a fully indoctrinated RuneScape 3-pilled, flaming wings-wearing, microtransaction-loving boy. But every time I entered that flow state I love so much, I kept getting pulled out. There was just one thing holding me back from truly embracing this game, from completely committing to it as a long-term game. Something that, as much as I wanted to avoid, I couldn't. The final hurdle I had to hurdle, dailies.
The number one criticism you'll hear about RuneScape 3, even from people who don't play the game, is that there are too many microtransactions, and yeah, that's 100% justified. There's too many, they're ugly, they're overpowered, I hate them, I wish they would go away. Yuck, 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 yuck. But the whole reason I played an Iron Man was to avoid microtransactions, and that has worked pretty well so far. I haven't even thought about them the entire time I've been playing. But there's no way to avoid what I think is the true plague on this game. The thing that is almost a bigger turnoff than any other system that exists within it. A daily is a friendly little term for a piece of content that you can access once per day. If you've played any amount of MMORPGs, you've probably seen dailies in one form or another. It can be as simple as a bonus for logging in every day and keeping a streak alive, or it can be as big as killing a boss every day. The whole concept of a daily exists to create a habit within players to make them feel like they have to log in every day and do their dailies, or else they're missing out. And you don't want to miss out. It's a really predatory system that maybe isn't obviously as harmful as microtransactions, but to me is just as unhealthy and unfun as them. And RuneScape 3 has a ton of dailies. Sorry, did I say a ton of dailies? I meant to say a fuck ton of dailies.
Progression early on for a RuneScape 3 account is getting all the stats, items, and quests you need to unlock different dailies. First, you want to unlock the island of Anachronia and start sending out workers so you can build up the island ASAP. Make sure you check back every day, by the way, so you're not wasting resources. Then you want to start up your player-owned farm that you have to check back in on daily to make sure you check on your animals, cure the diseases, sell them, and collect all your honeycomb as well for all of that farming experience. Next, you definitely want to move on to Nemi's Forest, where you have to run around a randomized forest to get your free farming and prayer experience. And how could you forget getting XP and 25 different skills in 3 hours $100 for your Jack of Trades bonus XP aura that you can only get from microtransactions or by being a member for long enough, both of which require real-world money, but for some reason Iron Man can use it. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but whatever, that's fine. And all of this doesn't even account for the fact that there are multiple ways to reset your daily timer so you can do these things multiple times a day. This is already obviously a lot, but it's also only like a 10th of the dailies that are out there and like a 5th of the ones you're recommended to do on new accounts. This is the entire list of dailies available in the game, which doesn't account for other time-gated systems that are weekly and monthly. But you might be thinking, oh, well, just don't do them if you don't like them. But that's easier said than done, because putting yourself at a huge disadvantage isn't a fun decision to make, even if you'll have less fun doing the daily content. In talking to RuneScape 3 players, dailies are commonly cited as their least favorite parts of the game's design, and half the battle is trying to figure out ways to incorporate them into their playstyle without having it dominate the time they do have to play. Some players choose to set time limits per day on how long they'll take to do their dailies, and some will do everything just once a week instead. And some others do decide to ignore it entirely. There are still plenty of ways to have fun with RuneScape despite the dailies, but it's just a shame to me that it requires so much thought process for what amounts to mindless, unfun gameplay loops. I ended up settling on doing just a few dailies every day that I actually kind of enjoyed. It still didn't feel good knowing I was leaving some great leveling methods on the table, and I still don't like dailies as a game design philosophy, but knowing myself, I would have quit instantly if I tried to either do none of them or commit to doing all of them. And so I didn't quit. I kept playing the game because I wanted to. Because genuinely, I was enjoying RuneScape 3.
Despite my issues with dailies and microtransactions, and the fact that I still find the combat clunky and the quest dialogue awkward and the humor forced, something about RuneScape 3 just started to change for me over these weeks I've been playing. I couldn't stop logging in to just do one more quest or to get my mining and smithing up just one more level. There was the new content like archaeology and necromancy that I found amazing, but even old content that I remember hating back when it came out, right at the end of my time with RuneScape back in 2012, all of a sudden I was really enjoying. I was training dungeoneering and having an amazing time with it. But when this came out when I was playing, I remember making a video saying that this was the worst thing to happen to RuneScape. How naive I was. But now, over 13 years later, I was just doing it, having fun. I was now focusing on the parts of the game I enjoyed and just kind of ignoring the parts I didn't like, which is something I do with every game I play. It's something I do with old school RuneScape. But before this, all I would focus on with RuneScape 3 were the negatives, and that wasn't really fair. I actually started this video ready to do a complete teardown of RuneScape 3, to call out the microtransactions, and to call out the terrible combat and horrible direction this game was headed in. And a lot of that stuff I do think is true, to be fair, but it's not what defines the game, at least not anymore. RuneScape 3 isn't perfect. It's actually really, really far from it, and it's probably not a game that I'll be sticking with much longer than a couple of more weeks, because the cons do still outweigh the pros for me with this game. But it's not this dumpster fire, this objectively horrible MMORPG that no one should ever lay eyes upon. There are some genuinely great parts to this game, and for a lot of people out there who haven't tried it, they might find that for them, it hits all the right notes if they can just put aside the biases they might have against it, either from their history with the game or from what they've heard. Just make sure when you're going into it, you're ready to take it for what it is. And you should also probably make an Iron Man, because God, the microtransactions are nuts, dude.
Hey, you're a patron. Thank you so much for your support. Hey, you're a patron. I like you very much, cause hey, you're a patron. Patreon is where you're at. You went to the URL in the description and you gave me your money, and that's pretty neat. Hey, you're a patron. Thank you so much for your support. Hey, you're a patron. I like you very much, cause hey, you're a patron. Patreon is where you're at. You went to the URL in the description and you gave me your money, and that's pretty neat.